Happy New Month, good evening and a warm welcome to GBS News at 9 today, Wednesday, the 1st of March 2023. You're joining us live from Good News Television, Nairobi. My name is Beatrice Jerry, our sign language interpreter is Paul Masenke. And together we'll be guiding you through the leading news of the hour. And of course, do keep the conversation going through our SMS line 21144 and GBS TV Africa in all our social media handles. To kickstart our bulletin tonight, let's take a look at stories making headlines. The government is set to replace the 10 trillion public debt ceiling with a debt anchor as a percentage of gross domestic product (GDP), in line with the promise made to the International Monetary Fund by the previous administration. This is after the cabinet on Tuesday gave a note to the National Assembly to move the debt ceiling from the current limit of not more than 10 trillion to a new debt anchor set at 55% of the GDP in present value terms. Let's take a look.
President William Ruto's administration has laid out plans for Parliament to replace the current public debt limit of 10 trillion Kenyan shillings, the debt ceiling hinged on the gross domestic product. This will be in line with the promise made to the International Monetary Fund (IMF) by the previous administration, but the Parliament rejected it. This is after the Cabinet on Tuesday gave a note to the National Assembly to move the debt ceiling from the current limit of not more than 10 trillion Kenyan shillings to a new debt anchor set at 55% of the GDP in present value terms. Cabinet approved the transmittal to Parliament of the legislative proposals replacing the normal debt ceiling of 10 trillion Kenyan shillings with a debt anchor set at 55% of GDP in present terms, read the press statement from the State House. By December, Kenya's total debt stood at 9.6 trillion Kenyan shillings, which was only 4 million Kenyan shillings shy of the borrowing ceiling set by legislators. This effectively meant that Ruto's administration, which came to power after the August election, has had little headroom to borrow for either development or recurrent expenditure. This came against a background of increased allocation of debt repayment, which consumes about 60% of the revenues collected by KRA. The new ceiling means that the government is already in breach, given that Kenya's debt is already above 70% of the GDP, and the new administration will now be forced to find means to walk the country backwards through growing the economy and slowing down the rate of acquiring new loans. With the debt anchor, Kenya's debt limit will now become a moving target from an absolute figure, with the present value of debt as a percentage of GDP expected to represent the current debt value of future cash flows. Kenya is set to release the 2022 GDP figures, but based on the 2021 figures, the country's total public debt should be at 6.6 trillion to be in line with the new metric. The new push to adjust the debt ceiling also comes in less than a year, since the normal debt ceiling was pushed from 9 trillion Kenyan shillings to 10 trillion last year June on what was interpreted as interim measure to accommodate the deficit financing of the 2022-2023 budget to June this year. Former Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani had promised to replace the debt ceiling with a percentage measure, but this was rejected by the then Parliament, instead choosing to increase the ceiling to 10 trillion Kenyan shillings. Hilary Kabila, GBS News.
Githunguri Member of Parliament Gathoni Wamuchomba proposed a motion to introduce standardization of school uniforms in Kenya that was tabled in the Senate early today as Order Number 8 Motion, Development of Standardization of Policy and Production of School Uniforms in the country. During the debate, the lawmaker said the Ministry of Education could direct that each county should have a standard color and a specific price for uniforms in public schools. Others in support of the motion include Honorable Nyikai James Wambura, Member of Parliament Seme Constituency, Honorable Mkunji John Getonga, Member of Parliament Manyata, and Honorable Mohamed Harun, nominated Member of Parliament. Let's take a look.
The member for Githunguri, Honorable Gathoni Wamuchomba, on the development of policy on standardization and production of school uniforms in the country.
Githunguri Member of Parliament Gathoni Wamuchomba has challenged the Ministry of Education to review its policy on school uniforms and shield Kenyans from ever-rising costs by tabling a motion on standardization of school uniforms in the Senate, which was addressed early today. Speaking during the hearing, the lawmaker called on the Ministry of Education to direct that each county should have a standard color and specific price of uniforms in public schools to ensure schools and business cartels do not have an opportunity to exploit parents countrywide in these hard economic times. She also pointed out that standardization of uniforms will reduce peer pressure and bullying, enhancing school pride, unity, and community spirit as they go a long way in contributing to students' sense of belonging to their school population.
My motion towards standardization seeks the Ministry of Education to come up with a policy and guide on the quality, the pricing, the buying and the making, and even the color. Mr. Speaker, I have gathered a lot of contribution points from members here that we actually can standardize in counties. We can decide county 001, public schools can wear a certain color. County 022, like my county, we can standardize and direct that they wear a certain color.
Also in support of the motion, Honorable Nyikai James Wambura noted the need to have uniforms in schools to promote social equity and control cases of indiscipline as it brings unity regardless of any learner's social background. The Member of Parliament stated that these will result in the regulation of cartels in schools selling uniforms at high prices and open market. Others in support of the motion include Honorable Mukunji John Getonga, Member of Parliament Manyata, and Honorable Mohamed Harun, nominated Member of Parliament.
Once there's a set of uniform that children are expected to have, it's a sign of discipline that they'll keep those uniforms, they'll keep them clean, and therefore you get some uniformity and it helps in enhancing discipline. Number two, Mr. Speaker, uniforms in our circumstances in this country where people live in very social different backgrounds, but the children go to the same school, give us a sense of social equity.
The day before yesterday, I was looking at one school fee structure which was requesting 30,000 Kenya shillings for school uniforms, Honorable Speaker. And I feel this is actually a motion that will set things right by standardizing what is required for our day schools and our secondary schools.
I went to a school where we were not allowed to wear hijab, and this is something that kind of affected me negatively, and a lot of children are withdrawing from top national schools because of this issue. So this will allow standardization across board, whether Muslim, Christian, or any religion. Thank you so much.
The ball now remains in the Ministry of Education. However, the big question of whether or not school uniforms should be abolished in the Kenyan schools has had a subside and flow debate, with various stakeholders sharing differing perspectives. Aspects of abolishment have stirred up the school uniform conversation for a while, with those proposing a possible subside. Beatrice Njeri, GBS News.
President William Samoei Ruto on the 1st of March chaired a meeting of the nation's apex policy organ, Cabinet at State House, Nairobi. The cabinet meeting considered policy imperatives to anchor the implementation of the administration's transformative plan as espoused in the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which posits socio-economic liberation as a great task of our time. In the meantime, His Excellency William Ruto received credentials from 4 ambassadors to Kenya at State House, Nairobi. He says he is keen on building and expanding diplomatic alliances with other countries, indicating that such ties should have the power to change lives and drive the world to prosperity. Barbara Gamba with the full report.
Of the nation's security, the cabinet was apprised on the ongoing joint security operation in the North Rift region of the country. The meeting observed that the task of conclusively eradicating cattle rustling and banditry attacks that had in part been normalized by the affected communities as a cultural way of life was a top priority of the administration. Cabinet also received a status report on the ongoing drought, as well as the support being rendered to vulnerable households and school-going children through the school feeding program. In that regard, Cabinet approved the appropriation of a further 4 billion Kenya shillings to the nation's drought elevation program. The nation's top policy organ also considered our nation's human health situation, as well as the health of Kenya's flora and fauna, as part of the administration's quest to lead the nation to a path of sustainable development in addressing the devastating effects of climate change. On education, the cabinet considered the progress being made in the implementation of the transition to the junior secondary school, which is part of the competency-based curriculum, CBC. The cabinet directed that to foster equal opportunity to all our nation's children, even where the transition to junior secondary school may warrant a change of uniform, no students should be turned away from school for lack of school uniform, so long as they are kitted in the primary school uniform. The administration's resolve to improve the lives of Kenyans through economic and social equity remains at the core of the cabinet's agenda, as manifestly set out in the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. President William Ruto on Wednesday, 1st of March, received diplomatic papers at State House, Nairobi from Ambassadors Mr. M. Nasir, Egypt, Mr. Ali Ami Mohammed Limam, Mr. Savas Valdimur, Cyprus, and Mr. Rusami bin Mohammed, Malaysia. In the meantime,
and my best regards to the President in Cyprus. And I look forward to working with you as you further our relations between our two countries. Again, congratulations and my very best wishes.
Speaking at the ceremony, President Ruto congratulated the new envoys, saying Kenya was committed to consolidating bilateral ties with the respective counties. He wished them success as they begin their tour of duty in the country. Reporting for GBS TV, I'm Barbara Gamba.
Many Kenyans are apprehensive of a proposal by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company to review the cost of electricity upwards. This comes as Honorable Member of Parliament for Ugunja, Opiyo Wandayi, decried cartels as reason behind high cost of energy. Mark Anthony with a report.
This review comes at a point in which the cost of living in the country has skyrocketed, leaving many Kenyans going through tough economic times. The most affected of Kenyans will be businesses in the Juakali sector that rely heavily on electricity to run their operations. In the proposal submitted to IPRA, the power company wants electricity tariffs to be increased from 15% of 7.7 shillings to at least 14 shillings for consumers of less than 30 units of electricity per month. The most affected by this will be those running small businesses in the country. The Member of Parliament for Ugunja, Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, has decreed an influx of cartels as the reason behind the high cost of energy. He reiterated that the cost of energy determines everything else in the economy and that the cartels should be dealt with in earnest.
Yes. The cartels in the energy sector must be dealt with ruthlessly. I am aware that there are managers and players and people in the energy sagas who are doing what we would call the internal trading. They are doing business irregularly with their entities. Very soon I'll be tabling damning reports here on how people who are in charge of these energy sagas are doing business irregularly with those very sagas. They are basically part of the cartels I'm talking about.
It is without doubt that if the proposal were to be passed by the Energy Regulatory Authority, then hundreds of businesses will be forced to close doors, leading to unemployment in the country, hence worsening of living standards of Kenyans. Reporting for GBS TV, I am Mark Anthony.
Once again, thank you for joining this live broadcast, and of course, happy new month to you as we kickstart this month of March. And I do want you to take our key issues and take a look and of course keep the conversation going on. There has been a topic on standardization of uniforms where the Githunguri Member of Parliament, Gathoni Wamushomba, did of course bring to table the motion to standardize a uniform for everyone. That is equals of the same color, maybe for different counties or for the same counties, and of course keep the SMSs coming in through through our SMS line 21144. Tell us, what are your thoughts on the same? Would you prefer that all schools have the same color of uniforms, or maybe county-wise? Maybe it can be according to the color the county prefers, but of course, do keep the comments coming in. GBS TV Africa and all our social media handles, do keep the conversation going on. And of course, on another issue that I would like you to also touch on, even as we continue, is about the Kenya Power and Lighting Company did propose to have the cost of electricity reviewed upwards. Of course, this has found many Kenyans to be very apprehensive about it, and of course, others saying that their jobs may be closed due to this. Of course, this is not an issue that affects individuals. This is an issue that affects each and everyone. Of course, the electricity issue and the prices going up at these tough economic times. Tell us through our SMS line 21144 and GBS TV Africa and all our social media handles. So just remember, tonight we'll be focusing on the standardization of uniforms, and of course the proposal by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company proposed to have the high cost of electricity being reviewed upwards. And of course, once again, thank you for joining this live broadcast, and that will be ushering us to our first commercial break. We will be right back.
Welcome to Mahanaim International High School. Are you worried about the character of your child? Mahanaim is the best Christian and character building school and offer British National Curriculum, IGCSE O-Level and GCE A-Level, and mixed day and boarding school. For more inquiry, call 0710 111 333.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back, and you're still watching GBS News at 9. Of course, do remember to comment on the standardization of uniforms through our SMS line 21144 and tell us your thoughts on the same. Moving forward with the bulletin tonight, Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry Saipan Tuya and U.S. Ambassador to Kenya Meg Whitman presided over banning of 13.5 tons of sandalwood at DCI headquarters on Tuesday, following a destruction order issued by the Chief Magistrate sitting at the Kahawa Local on February 8, 2023, recovered over a period of time by detectives in different operations. Odhiambo with the full report.
Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry, Saipan Tuya, and the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, on Tuesday afternoon presided over banning of 13.5 tons of sandalwood at DCI headquarters, following a destruction order issued by the Chief Magistrate sitting at the Kahawa Law Courts on February 8, 2023, recovered over a period of time by detectives in different operations.
Today's event is very symbolic and acts to demonstrate the commitment and teamwork of various stakeholders gathered here today to break the illicit networks that seek to benefit from the growing illicit trade in sandalwood trees and its products.
The heaps of the 13.5 tons of sandalwood that you are seeing in front of you, bundled for destruction here today, are a testimony of criminality, ignorance of the law, and a downright disregard of the environment and the future of our country and our generations.
According to the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, sandalwood is the most trafficked natural resource in Kenya, and its exploitation is to organized crime and corruption, which are expansive and elusive. Additionally, the U.S. ambassador to Kenya noted that the destruction of sandalwood tree during harvesting harms biodiversity and negatively impact local climatic conditions, and that misuse of this valuable resource is causing a loss in biodiversity and a source of medicine in local community.
I now know that sandalwood is one of the most trafficked natural resources in Kenya, and that the sandalwood story is one of exploitation, organized crime, and corruption. Misuse of this valuable resource is causing a loss of biodiversity and a source of medicine for local communities.
And my presence here today is to demonstrate the commitment and support to this multi-stakeholder, really an all government, all society, and all community approach to the protection of our environment.
Trading in the plant is prohibited and outlawed in Kenya, and anyone who is found practicing otherwise face prosecution and a jail term not less than 8 years. In 2006, there was an increased overexploitation of sandalwood in the country, according to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, which lists the tree as threatened, hence its ban in 2007. It is also in the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species. The global sandalwood oil market was valued at $97.1 million in 2019, and it is expected to reach $196.7 million by the end of 2026, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 10.5% during 2021-2026.
2007, the government of Kenya issued a ban on the harvesting of sandalwood. But despite the ban, the overexploitation of the sandalwood tree has continued, with many cases making headlines in the past 2 decades.
Sandalwood is heavy, fine-grained aromatic wood where its oil content is extracted to manufacture perfumes. Unlike many other aromatic woods, they retain their aromatic fragrance from decades. Recently, Kenya banned the uprooting and export of baobab trees from coastal Kilifi County following a public outcry over the increased felling of the unique species. Reporting for GBS News, I am James Odhiambo.
A section of members of parliament have called on Kenyans to ignore the Supreme Court ruling, giving nod to members of the LGBTQ community to associate. Members drawn from various groups, including Catholic MPs Association, Muslim MPs, and Bunge Fellowship, criticized the Supreme Court over its decision. Some leading malice, saying it is ironical that judgment coincided with a visit by the First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden. The Catholic MPs imploring the 7th judgment to review its decision. Seta Emmanuel with the report.
With the Supreme Court ruling last week on the LGBTQ community, where the court said that the decision to deny members of the community their rights to register as an NGO despite homosexuality, a section of members of the parliament have called on Kenyans to ignore the Supreme Court ruling, giving a note to the members of the LGBTQ community to associate. Members drawn from the various groups, including the Catholic MPs Association, Muslim MPs, and the Bunge Fellowship, criticized the Supreme Court over its decision, some reading malice saying it was ironical that the judgment coincided with the visit by First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden.
We are going back to that Supreme Court with the religious organizations, the churches and everybody, and we are going to request the Supreme Court in their full bench of 7 in number to review that position. And if they don't, then I want to remind the Supreme Court and our court system to begin reading where they derive their power from.
We will not accept, and we will call out those judges who specifically voted that they are not for the interest of the people.
Indeed, our Constitution and even the Penal Code outlaw these scholars' shameful, distasteful, and heinous activities. We have a platform to make laws. We are Christians. We will not let Kenyans down.
In the National Assembly, the motion created a lot of talks as the lawmakers emphasized that the ruling is not anchored according to the norms and standings of the Kenyans as a country and a society too.
So, Mr. Speaker, the ruling by the Supreme Court, whichever way it was, has gone against the Constitution, Article 11. And therefore, it means that judgment which was made by the Supreme Court is null and void because it is against the Constitution.
That ruling was actually giving provision for propagating it, because you cannot say register an organization. The object of any group is to promote what they do.
The ruling by the court has received a lot of backlash from the Kenyan citizens who have urged the court to overturn the ruling with the basis that Kenya is a religious state. Earlier, Christ is the Answer Church had come out strongly to condemn the Supreme Court's ruling on the LGBTQ movements. Additionally, the Muslim community called upon the other faith groups and the Kenyans to come together in a unified voice to fight against mechanisms which they feel will threaten to tear apart the long-standing societal institutions of marriage and family as they know it. All that remains in the minds of Kenyans is whether the Supreme Court will look to overturn the ruling. Reporting for GBS TV News, I'm Sete Emmanuel.
Ethics and Anti-Corruption Authority officers in Malindi have arrested a senior Tana River County government official found in possession of 2.69 million, whose source the officer said was suspicious. Mr. Hassan Khalid, the ESCC manager in charge of the Upper Coast region, said the officer was arrested at the Malindi International Airport aboard on a plane destined for Nairobi after allegedly failing to declare the money she was carrying. It is not clear how the official passed through all the checkpoints at the air facility with a huge sum of money, with reports that she had indeed declared the cash before boarding the aircraft. He said immediately investigations are over, the file will be sent to the Director of Public Prosecution for possible prosecution. Malindi advocate Maurice Kilonzo confirmed that this client had been arrested while traveling to Nairobi, but said she had withdrawn the money from a local bank so that she could buy a vehicle in Nairobi.
An official from the county government of Tana River was ferrying money to Nairobi, and with the help of officers from the Malindi police station and also the security of Malindi airport, we managed to arrest one officer carrying and being in possession of 2.69 million shillings, which was unexplained for the purpose in which she was in possession of the money. But there was further indication that a number of other officers were carrying money, but we had not managed to arrest them. So we have opened an inquiry file on this matter, on the source of this money.
A staff audit commissioned by Kitui Governor Dr. Julius Malombe has unearthed a total of 935 ghost workers in the county government. The audit, which was conducted by the Kitui County Human Resource and Staff Prioritization Committee, included a physical head count of the entire county workforce. While presenting the audit report to the county boss, the committee's chairperson, Dr. Florence Muinde, revealed that 935 individuals in the country's payroll did not show up for the employment validation process. The report indicated that of the 935 unaccounted for workers, 326 are permanent and pensionable employees, 23 are contractual and 56 ECDE teachers, and 530 casuals. According to the committee, the County Public Service Board recruited 592 employees without evidence of accompanying requirements affirmation of the availability of funds for the personnel emoluments from the relevant chief officers. In the report, the committee recommended that arbitrary engagement of casual and wage payments by departments without approval from the County Public Services Board ceases forthwith.
Immediately. If they are there, they will come running
because you can't do without your salary. If they are not there, you'll never see them. I don't know, I have not heard the human resource manager or director saying he has ever seen one coming. And so let's stop the salaries and then let them come if they are there. If they are not there, you'll have made a saving, and a huge one.
Where immediate action is supposed to be taken, we will take that action. But let's not forget one thing. We must follow due diligence. If somebody is accused of something which is suspected or is alleged to be contrary to the laid down procedures, you don't just wake up and sack them. There is what we call due process for fairness and justice.
And that ushers us to our second break. And of course, we have a lot lined up for you. But first, let's take a quick commercial break.
Welcome to Mahanaim International High School. Are you worried about the character of your child? Mahanaim is the best Christian and character building school and offer British National Curriculum, IGCSE O-Level and GCE A-Level, and mixed day and boarding school. For more inquiry, call 0710 111 333.
Nakukaribisha tena katika makao makuu yako katika ulimwengu wa michezo.
Yoga is not a sport. Yoga is actually a way of life.
Ukiona FIFA inaingilia kati, it means that the FIFA rules have been violated.
From day one akiingia kwa academy yako, unamwambia masomo na talent lazima ziende. The moment nasikia masomo imeenda hivi chini, hata time out. Hata hiyo time out kwa football account.
Wanawake ni wengi actually mpaka saa hizi tumekaa ni kama tumekuwa wanawake wamekuwa wengi kuliko wanaume. Kuna wale ambao ni artistic. Yes, wanapenda mambo ya kuigiza.
I am coded to look for solutions.
You limit yourself, not the sport doesn't limit you.
We say a dedicated women-only show that focuses only on women.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You're still watching GBS News at 9. And now to proceed with the bulletin, Ebu County government has embarked on plans to alleviate perennial water shortage in the Asal sub-counties of Mbeere North and South in a bid to turn them into the next county breadbasket. Water crisis in the area has of late sparked a huge uproar following diversion of the main water source, the Baliva, upstream in the neighboring Kirinyaga County. Let's take a look.
The Embu County government has embarked on plans to alleviate perennial water shortage in the Asal sub-counties of Mbeere North and South in a bid to turn them into the next county breadbasket. Governor Cecil Marile said they had identified key projects including sinking of boreholes and construction of earth dams to store runoff water to turn around the fortunes of locals who rely on agriculture as the main economic activity.
Hii ndio mwenendo wetu kuendelea mbele, tutaendelea kuweka pesa katika earth dams kwa sababu tumeona harvesting of water is the way to go going forward. Pia ningetaka kusema tumeshirikiana na Mheshimiwa William Ruto ambaye amekubali kwamba tutafute mbinu za kuhakikisha tumeweza kutumia maji ile iko kwa dams zile ziko karibu na sisi, Masinga Dam, Gitaru, Kindaruma and Kiambere, tuweze kuweka hiyo maji kwa mlima juu iweze kuteremka kwa mwananchi by gravity.
Water crisis in the area as of late sparked a huge uproar following diversion of their main water source, Thiba River upstream, in the neighboring Kirinyaga County. The locals have accused the neighbors of obstructing large volumes of water at the river to irrigate their farms, leaving them with nothing. On Monday, locals within Machanga area paralyzed transport along the busy Embuka-Nyoro Road after holding demonstrations demanding for the unblocking of the river.
Challenge ile tuko nayo kubwa sana huku kwa sababu ya mvua ilikuwa kidogo ni maji. Ile mito huwa tunategemea. Hapa kuna mto inaitwa kuna Rupingaze, kuna Dhiba, hizo ndizo zile kubwa kubwa zinakaa na maji mpaka mwisho. Lakini hii mito kidogo kidogo hata vile maji huwa inatiririka kutoka mvua ikinyesha, at least hiyo mito haikujaa. Hii Tabua, Nguo, hizo mito zote kidogo kidogo hazikujaa maji, na hizo ndizo zinategemewa na mifugo yetu, ndizo watu wanaendea maji pale kwa sababu si maeneo yote imefika maji ya kunywa. Kwa hivyo watu wanaendeanga hapo kwa mto, lakini kwa sasa hiyo mito yote imekauka. This time round tunang'ang'ana tutafute zile mbegu zitaweza kufumilia hii weather.
Mirani cash crop ya hapa mbele kwetu. Hiyo ndio naweza omba wote. Kwa hivyo shinda na kilio ni maji. Hiyo ndio mimi naweza omba serikali na wasaidiane na waheshimiwa wajue vile maji itawafikia watu hapa Mbeti South na Gachoka S General. Kwa hivyo maji ndio muhimu tu. Maji kishafika kila mtu ataamka.
Huku kwetu shinda ile iko ni shinda ya mvua. Sasa ukiangalia kwa shamba hakuna kitu. Juu tulikuwa tumepanda, mvua ikaenda. Ile maharagwe tulikuwa tumepanda hatukuvuna, pia mahindi hatukuvuna. Sasa wale wako na nafadhali wale wameandikwa na serikali juu wanatuitia vibarua. Kama mtu wa kulima hawezi peana kibarua juu hakuna kitu ya kulipa watu nayo.
Mbeti South MCA Murithi Kura said the crisis called for a paradigm shift from rain-fed to irrigated agriculture in the light of effects of climate change. Jennifer Makau reporting for GBS.
And now moving to international news, election officials declared ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu the winner of Nigeria's presidential election on Wednesday, with the two leading opposition candidates already demanding a revote in Africa's most populous nation. The overnight announcement was likely to lead to a court challenge by his main opponents, Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi. Mr. Abubakar also finished second in the last vote in 2019, then appealed those results before his lawsuit ultimately was dismissed. Lino with the full report.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu was on Wednesday declared the winner of Nigerian controversial presidential election as opposition leaders decried the poll as rigged and called for a fresh vote. Tinubu 70 represent the ruling All Progressive Congress Party, which received close to 8.8 million votes, about 36.6% of the total, according to Independent National Electoral Commission or INEC Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu.
Tinubu Bola Ahmed of the APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected. Thank you.
He defeated Vice President Atiku Abubakar of the opposition People Democratic Party and popular third-forced candidate Peter Obi, who has gained in popularity among young people in particular. In an acceptance speech, Tinubu thanked voters and said he was proudly humbled.
This is a shining moment in the life of any man and affirmation of our democratic system.
He also appealed to his fellow contestants, asking them to team up together to strengthen the country.
I take this opportunity also again to appeal to my fellow contestants to let us team up together. It's the only nation we have.
Leno Lunjok, GBS News.
Democracy was a key topic of Blinken's first stop in Kenya on Wednesday, telling a group of human rights activists in Nairobi that the world is undergoing a recession of democracy. He warned that even vibrant democracies like Kenya have become increasingly vulnerable to misinformation, corruption, political violence, and voter intimidation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has moved to Nigeria, marking the second stop on his three-nation Africa tour. He took the opportunity at a news conference to send a warning to Sudan's militant rurals. And finally, he visited Senegal in order to mark his last trip to African continent. Let's take a look.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held talks on Thursday in Abuja with Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, Foreign Minister Geoffrey Onyema, and other officials to discuss furthering cooperation on global health security, expanding energy access and economic growth, and revitalizing democracy, according to U.S. State Department.
Our engagement in Africa, with Africa, our partnership with Nigeria, with many other countries, is not about China or any other third party. It's about Africa. It's about working together to make the investments in Africa, make the investments in its people.
His African tour, which concluded with a visit to Senegal, is specially aimed at raising American profile as a key player in the region as it competes with China.
Delighted to have the U.S. back supporting the multilateral system and back in the climate change, finding a solution on climate action. And so we're also hoping that the U.S. will push the other industrialized countries to make good on this promise, because we certainly need this kind of financial support to be able to put in place all the actions that we need for mitigation and for adaptation.
Despite its large contribution of money and vaccine to contain COVID-19 and other infectious diseases, the United States has had little success in gaining influence in the region. Moreover, the top U.S. diplomat also visited Senegal Friday and Saturday on the last leg of a 5-day multi-nation trip, during which he outlined the Biden administration policy toward Africa, declaring what the U.S. sees as African countries as equal partners.
I joined 4 American companies signing agreements to collaborate with the Senegalese government on new infrastructure projects. We want to inspire a race to the top for global infrastructure, to close the infrastructure gap, while also creating local jobs, protecting workers and the environment, reducing corruption, and avoiding saddling countries with unmanageable debt. I also announced a new $14.8 million program with USAID to help young people and women in Senegal get access to business development and financing. I also talked with the minister, the president as well, about Senegal's leadership on climate and underscored our support for its renewable energy goals and our commitment to international financing for climate adaptation and resilience.
Foreign Minister Aissata Tall Sall said that U.S. influence in Africa will always be important. She noted the U.S. never colonized Africa and said the Senegalese see the United States as a country of freedom. He also met with Senegalese President Macky Sall at the presidential palace in Dakar. The two leaders also attended an event at Dakar Institute Pasteur, which hopes to begin producing COVID-19 vaccine with U.S. assistance next year. Blinken later noted that U.S. President Biden intends to host another U.S.-African Leaders Summit to drive the kind of high-level diplomacy and engagement that can transform relationships and makes effective cooperation possible, as a sign of their commitment to their partnership across the continent. However, the top U.S. diplomat did not say when the summit will take place. Leno Lunjok, GBS News.
Thank you, Lena Linjok, for that detailed report, and that ushers us to our sports news. Let's get sporty. Slumboy Mathare shocked their fans as they crushed league leaders Gor Mahia 2-1 today at Kasarani. Mathare, who are on the 15th place, have showed a lot of improvement despite the challenges facing them, with recently winning 4 of their 6 games. Let's take a look.
Slamboys Mathare silenced Gor Mahia fans today at Moi Sport Kasarani as they crushed league leaders 2-1. Mathare, who seemed to be a weaker side at the beginning of the match, scored the first goal on the 8th minute of the first half and used counter-attacks to punish well-organized Kogalo. Gor Mahia came back on the second half with an equalizer on the 66th minute from top scorer Benson Omala before Mathare super substitute Daniel Otieno doubling the scores for the Slamboys on the 82nd minute. Speaking after the match, Mathare coach Sam Koko said believe, hard work and determination was the key in his team today and he believes they will continue to do good. He termed the win as a big win for them and it will welcome sponsors since the team can play and win even in difficult times when they have no sponsors.
Ni motivation ya players. Each and every time ukijua kuongea na players wako na ku-encourage that wanafaa kucheza. Unajua football is about venye utaongelesha players wako. A lot of things happening behind the scene of which people don't know. But if you talk to them, you encourage them, you encourage, make this rotation that kila time believe on your players that anybody can play. Usibague mchezaji that you have kucheza. Anybody akiweza cheza unampea chance anacheza na showcase na that's why you imetupea victory. This big is so win because even tunataka ku-encourage sponsors kuja around because each and every time wakati wachezaji wanajitolea venye wamejitolea siku ya leo, then sponsors wenye wako around wanafaa kufeel that wanafaa kuja kusaidia team because it's a good team that each and every time wakikuja kwa support in terms of financially inamaanisha ni team itaza perform zaidi. Na hiyo ndio kitu tuna invite sponsors wakuje because wakuja support team inangangana sana.
Mathare has won 4 out of their 6 matches, including today's match, which they have ended Gor Mahia's 11 matches unbeaten race. On the other hand, Gor Mahia's coach Jonathan McKinstry saying that the match was tactical and that they have lost against a good side, terming his team as a flat side today, despite Mathare showing a lot of quality in defense.
Congratulations to Mathare. I think they played really well. They defended extremely well today. We were a bit flat. I think there's no doubt about that. We were below our levels, but don't take anything away from our opponents today. I think we can't complain about the result. We needed to do more. We were a little bit unfortunate. We've obviously hit the woodwork twice. You know, we've hit the crossbar, we've hit the post, we've had one disallowed, and so we can maybe consider ourselves a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, I think Mathare defended really well. They made sure there wasn't a lot of space inside. We were sort of forced to use the flanks a little bit more, and they defended cross as well.
Gor Mahia still remain on the top with 37 points, but narrowed the gap with second place Nzoia Sugar. Reporting for GBS TV, I'm McDonald.
United set to face Hammers today on AFA match on the 5th round as Ten Hag is seeking to extend his 10 games unbeaten run, while Liverpool will face Wolves at Anfield today on a Premier League contest with clubs seeking to revenge at home after earlier losing 3-0. McDonald with the full report.
Liverpool will take Wolves today at Anfield with the Reds looking forward to bounce back after a difficult week. Liverpool were crushed 5-2 by Real Madrid on the Champions League before firing blanks on their encounter with Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, where they went on a barren draw. Liverpool have won twice in their last 5 matches, lost once and drew 2, while Palace have lost twice, drawn once and won twice. Wolves won 3-0 last month on their last encounter with Liverpool. League leaders Arsenal will face Everton today at Emirates, with the Gunners seeking to revenge after earlier losing 1-0 at Goodison Park. Arsenal's game in hand will be a must-win for Arteta's side as they seek to widen the gap with second-place Manchester City on the title race. Arsenal will be without Mohamed Elneny, who has a serious knee injury, while Thomas Partey is expected to start today after coming back on the match against Leicester. Sean Dyche is still in doubt whether Calvert-Lewin will start today after a hamstring injury. Manchester United are back on the cup trial as they go down against West Ham on the FA. United have progressed from more FA fifth round ties than any other side, progressing in 41 times, but last year they were eliminated by Middlesbrough on penalties. They have gone 10 matches unbeaten, but extending their unbeaten run is not given considering their struggles in their recent meetings. Reporting for GBS TV, I'm McDonald.
Thank you, McDonald, for that detailed report. And of course, that marks the end of our news segment tonight. Remember, here at GBS News at 9, we make your news our business. My name is Beatrice Jerry. Our sign language interpreter is Paul Mathenge. Good night.